A mountain had stood there for more than 1,000 years, separated from the noise and chaos of the world. The winds of the Aegean Sea still swept across its rocky cliffs. Ancient bells still echoed through the morning mist. And among the dozens of monasteries scattered across its slopes, time itself seemed to move according to an entirely different rhythm. This was the place people called the Holy Mountain. For centuries, countless monks had come to this place. Some stayed for a few years. Some remained for the rest of their lives. They came from different lands and carried different stories, yet they all shared one desire: to leave the world behind and search for what they believed was eternal. The ancient stone walls here had watched countless faces come and go. Saints, pilgrims, and people searching for answers to their lives. And among all of them, there was once a young man who arrived here at only 19 years old. What made his story unusual was this: he never truly left. The year was 1926. A ship slowly approached the harbor near Mount Athos. Standing among the passengers on its deck was a young Romanian from the region of Bessarabia. No one aboard that ship could have known that the quiet young man standing there would spend nearly the rest of his life in this place. Perhaps even he did not fully understand what awaited him. But he knew one thing. Deep within his heart, he felt that he was walking in the right direction. Most 19-year-olds spend their days thinking about the future, careers, family, or ambitious dreams. But this young man chose another path. After entering monastic life, he received a new name, Ioan. This was more than a simple change of identity. In the monastic tradition, it was almost like beginning a completely new life. He went to live at the Romanian Skete of Lacu. At first, there was nothing extraordinary about Ioan's life. Only days repeating themselves over and over again. Prayer, labor, silence, and learning how to struggle against himself. His spiritual guide was Elder Ioan. The old monk did not teach through long sermons. He taught through the way he lived. There was one sentence that Ioan would remember for the rest of his life: "Try to die here." At first, the words sounded strange, but he was not speaking about the death of the body. He was speaking about the death of the self. Because for those who embrace the ascetic life, the greatest battle is never fought somewhere out in the world. It takes place within the human soul itself. For those who choose the ascetic life, the struggle is unlike anything the world usually imagines. When people think of discipline, they often picture athletes, someone who pushes the limits of the body through effort and endurance, someone who trains relentlessly until ordinary abilities become extraordinary ones. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of training: asceticism. At first, the idea referred to physical training and discipline. It described the process through which a person developed mastery over the body through effort, sacrifice, and perseverance. Later, philosophers such as the Stoics gave the word a deeper meaning. To them, the greatest challenge was not lifting heavier weights or running greater distances. The real battle was learning to control the appetites within human nature itself: pleasures, anger, greed, lust. The Stoics believed that if a person could govern these impulses, they could become truly virtuous. But there was something missing, something that Christianity would later approach differently. Because how could a person truly overcome the deepest struggles of the human heart through willpower alone? How could human weakness be conquered simply through effort? Christianity transformed the understanding of asceticism. It was no longer only about discipline, it was about grace. Through fasting, prayer, chastity, vigils, and self-denial, the Christian ascetic did not seek merely to suppress desire. The goal was not self-punishment. The goal was transformation, to empty oneself of pride and passions, so that the heart could become filled with something greater, to become united with God. Even Christ himself showed this path in the wilderness, spending 40 days in fasting and prayer before beginning his ministry. And through the centuries, many had walked this road before Ioan, men whose names became known throughout Christian history. Saint Anthony, the great warrior of the desert who endured fierce spiritual battles beneath the burning Egyptian sun. Saint Pachomius, who organized communities of monks where spiritual discipline could grow and flourish. Saint Basil, whose monastic rules would shape generations of those seeking this life. These men understood something the world often forgets. Solitude is not always emptiness. Sometimes solitude becomes a place of training, a place where a person encounters himself and eventually encounters God. Years passed quietly for Ioan. He spent his days reading the Psalms inside his small cell, praying through the hours and continuing the hidden battle that few people ever saw. Occasionally, monks or pilgrims would visit him, and many who met him noticed the same thing: his humility, his patience, his quiet peace. One monk later said, "He belonged to those people who are barely noticed by the world, yet are very well known in the eyes of God." And his eyes. People often said that when you looked into them, it felt as though you were staring into the depth of an ocean. During his years on the Holy Mountain, Ioan was eventually ordained to the priesthood and later became a hieromonk. In time, he moved to the cultu scite, carrying with him the same way of life he had embraced since his youth. Yet even among men devoted to prayer and solitude, some friendships quietly formed. Elder Ioan developed a close friendship with another monk, Elder Dionysius. The two often spent time together, sometimes fishing, sometimes praying, and often simply sharing the stillness that surrounded life on the Holy Mountain. Years later, Elder Dionysius would remember those days and say, "We spent both the great and lesser feasts together. Father Ioan was a good monk, very zealous, very strict in monastic life." Then he added something that revealed just how difficult Elder Ioan's way of life truly was. Other monks tried to live with him, but they could not endure it. Throughout his long life, Elder Ioan dedicated himself to fasting with remarkable strictness. He ate very little and slept only a few hours each night. He spoke rarely. He avoided unnecessary visitors, preferring silence and prayer over conversation. As the years passed, his body naturally grew weaker. Age began placing its burden upon him. His joints ached. His strength slowly diminished. But he accepted suffering with the same quiet humility with which he accepted everything else. Even in old age, he continued making prostrations during prayer. Perhaps the way he lived could be summarized through words he once spoke. We need to begin with the fear of God and continue with love for Him. Between these, let us add humility and prayer, and we will reach the heavenly kingdom. One evening, on the eve of the feast of St. John the Baptist, a group of monks came to Elder Ioan with visible frustration on their faces. For hours, they had been casting their nets into the water, again and again, and every time, they pulled them back empty. The feast day was approaching, and without food, they would have little to prepare for the brethren. Eventually, they went to Elder Ioan, hoping perhaps for advice, or at least a word of comfort. The elder listened quietly. Then he simply said, "Go to the lake by the shore and bring back the large fish that is there." The monks looked at one another. His answer made little sense. That was exactly where they had already been fishing. They had spent hours there. Still, out of respect for the elder, they returned. As they approached the water, they looked toward the shoreline. Then they suddenly stopped. There, close to the edge of the lake, was a large fish, large enough to feed the brethren for days. For a moment, no one spoke. They had searched the waters repeatedly and found nothing. Yet now the fish rested there calmly, almost as if it had been waiting. Without resistance, they reached down with their hands and lifted it from the water. And in that moment, their frustration disappeared. The monks did not praise Elder Ioan. They praised God, because on the Holy Mountain, the greatest miracles were never believed to come from men. Men were only servants. Years later, another unusual event would occur. Toward the end of Elder Ioan's life, one of his disciples, a monk named Augustine, came to him one day with a playful spirit. Carrying water had always been difficult for the monks. The nearest spring lay down in the valley, and each day they had to travel back and forth carrying heavy containers up the mountain paths. Perhaps jokingly, Augustine smiled and said, "Pray to God, Venerable Father. Since He listens to you, ask Him to send us a spring closer to the skeet, so we no longer have to carry water all the way from below." Elder Ioan said nothing. Eventually, Augustine forgot the conversation completely. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A new spring appeared near the skeety. Water began flowing in a place where none had flowed before. People spoke quietly about it afterward. But because over time, many around him began noticing something unusual. It seemed that his prayers carried a weight few could explain. Through his devotion, his discipline, and his unwavering focus on living a life centered entirely on Christ, many believed Elder Ioan had been given spiritual gifts. People around him would later say that there was something difficult to explain about the old monk. Some said he seemed to know things before they happened. Others claimed he would speak about events that had not yet taken place. Still others simply walked away from him with the strange feeling that he somehow understood what they had never spoken aloud. But Elder Ioan himself never spoke about such things. He never presented himself as someone extraordinary. If anything, he tried to remain unseen. As the years passed, the young monk who had once stepped onto Mount Athos at 19 slowly became an old man. By the autumn of 1996, nearly 70 years had passed since his arrival on the Holy Mountain. 70 years, a lifetime of prayer, a lifetime of silence, a lifetime of hidden struggles no one else could fully see. Around this time, the monks began noticing something unusual. Elder Ioan started visiting the brethren more frequently. He settled practical matters. He spoke to people he had not spoken to in some time, and one by one, he began asking forgiveness from them. Among monastic communities, such actions often carried a meaning that required no explanation. It was as if he already knew, as if he was preparing for a journey. He received Holy Communion from his longtime friend, Father Dionysius. Then the days continued quietly. Then, 2 months later, on December 5th, Elder Ioan fell asleep in the Lord, the man who had arrived as a teenager, the man who had spent nearly 7 decades hidden in prayer and silence, the man almost unknown to the world, had completed his earthly journey. Or at least, that is what everyone believed, because years later, something happened that would leave one visitor completely speechless. Years later, a lone pilgrim walked along the narrow road leading toward Colchuschiete. He was a Romanian priest visiting the holy mountain. Like many pilgrims before him, he had come carrying a quiet purpose in his heart. He held a deep reverence for Elder Ioan. Although the elder had already departed this world, stories about his humility and holiness had continued spreading among monks and visitors alike. The priest had come for one simple reason. He wanted to stand before Elder Ioan's grave. He wanted to bow his head, to ask for his prayers, and perhaps simply to feel close to the memory of a man whose life had touched so many people. Eventually, he found the place. But as he approached the grave, something immediately caught his attention. Standing nearby was a small, humble-looking monk. Nothing about him appeared unusual. No radiant light, no dramatic appearance. Just an ordinary monk, standing quietly beside the grave. The priest looked at him for a moment, then asked, "Who are you?" The monk answered calmly, "It is I, Ioan." The priest stared at him. He felt a sudden confusion, because the name sounded familiar, very familiar. Then the monk continued, "The one whose grave you have come to visit." For a moment, the priest could not speak. His mind struggled to understand what he had just heard. How could that be possible? Everyone knew Elder Ioan had died years earlier. Memorial services had been held for him. Monks remembered him in prayer. People spoke of him as someone who had already departed from this life. Finally, still trying to understand what he was hearing, the priest asked, "Your Reverence, how can this be? Everyone says you died long ago." The old monk looked at him and answered with complete peace, "Even if I died, know that I am still alive." Simple words, only a few words, yet words that seemed to carry a depth beyond ordinary understanding. The priest stood there in silence, because suddenly he realized something. Perhaps the elder was not speaking about earthly life at all. Perhaps he was speaking about something greater, something that monks on the holy mountain had spent their entire lives seeking, something beyond death itself. Stunned and filled with awe, the priest asked for a blessing. He kissed the elder's hand, and then he departed, his heart overflowing with joy and wonder at the mystery of God and his saints. And perhaps Elder Ioan had left behind one final lesson, because after 70 years of prayer, fasting, solitude, and hidden sacrifice, the message was never really about extraordinary miracles. It was something far simpler. Keep your thoughts from controlling you. Let them come, let them go. Do not cling to them, do not fear them. Keep your face turned toward Christ, like a sunflower always turning toward the sun.